If you want something done properly, do it yourself, right? Well, not really. Welcome to Lead Well with Jackie. I'm Jackie Butler, your host, and today we're talking about one of the biggest leadership traps, doing it all yourself. So if the thought of handing over control makes your stomach twist, or if you've ever said or even thought the words, "It's just quicker if I do it myself," this episode is for you. Because delegation isn't just a productivity tool, it's actually a leadership imperative. And this is one of the top challenges that I see in my clients who are overwhelmed, overburdened, heading towards burnout, holding on to all of the work themselves to try and protect their team from having to do it, or protect their team from having burnout or overwhelm. So we're going to work through all of that in today's episode. So we want to start with why you're still doing it all. And let's really think about this honestly. No one else is here, it's just you and me. Most leaders don't delegate because of this simple reason that they've told themselves, which is, it's just quicker if I do it myself. Have you ever said that? I definitely have, especially when, maybe your leader or an exec team member comes over and says, "Oh, hey, can you just do X, Y, and Z?" And you think, "Oh, yeah, so-and-so should be doing that. But it's just quicker if I do it myself. I'll just quickly do that." And I literally had a client yesterday who said, and then I find myself saying that maybe 3 or 4 times a day, and the tasks I think are only going to take 5 minutes, but they end up taking an hour. And then all of a sudden, that's 5 hours of my day that I've done with these little incidental tasks that I should have handed off in the first place. If the line that you're telling yourself is that it's quicker if you do it yourself, I want you to take a pause now and really think, is it? Is it quicker? Or is that just what you're telling yourself so that you can just do it? Let's think about timing, right? And extrapolate this idea over the course of, say, a year. We're not actually saving time by doing these tasks ourselves, but what we can do when we delegate is we can front load the time spent. So if you hold on to the task, and let's say the task takes 10 minutes, then you will spend 10 minutes every time that task arises for the rest of time, or at least for the next 12 months, right? Because you're always going to be doing it, because you're always going to believe that it's faster if you do it yourself. But how long would it really take for you to delegate that to someone better suited to doing the task? Whether it's because it's in their remit, they have more capacity, or it's an opportunity for them to increase their skill. Let's say it takes half an hour for you to train them, or to even just pass it over, make sure they have a full understanding of what they need to do. Let's say maybe it takes an extra 10 minutes for you to review what they've done before it moves on to the next stakeholder. So it might take 40 minutes for someone else to do a task that it would have taken you 10 minutes. So yeah, it would be faster. But if that thing needs to be done more than 4 times a year, then it's actually faster and more time efficient if you delegate it. Because once it has arisen 4 times, then all of a sudden you're banking time. You have, every time that task comes up, you're not doing it. And so you have that freedom, you have more credit in terms of your time. So I really challenge you to assess and dig deep and be honest with yourself. Is it actually saving time? Because usually it's saving time each individual time you do it, but it's not saving you time in the long term, because if you keep doing it, then you will always be doing it. The other thing to keep in mind, if time is the challenge, is you doing the task the best way forward, or is you spending your time managing the expectations of other stakeholders is time better spent? So if your boss comes over to you and says, hey, can you just do A, B, and C? And you think, oh, I better quickly get that done, drop everything, I'll do it in the next 10 minutes, and you get it delivered to them 15 minutes later. But actually, they just wanted it done by the end of the day or the end of the week. Then you do have time to delegate it and upskill someone and save your future self time. So sometimes managing or just gaining clarity on the requester's expectation is a really important component in looking into delegating. The next thing I want you to consider is what's under this surface level excuse of it's quicker if I do it myself. Sometimes we see deeper patterns happening here. Maybe you don't want to let go of control. That idea that if you want it done right, then only you can do it right. Maybe you've fallen into this trap of feeling responsible for protecting your team from stress. I had this have this wonderful client, and she came to me. We first met after she had returned from a holiday in Bali, where she spent most of her time working. She took her laptop with her and she worked the majority of the holiday because she didn't feel comfortable delegating work to her team or even letting her team do work while she was on leave because she didn't want to burden them. When we worked through this stuff that I'm going to tell you in today's episode, and she started to delegate to her team, she said that her team have never been happier. They've never been more empowered. They've never been more productive. She grossly underestimated their capacity. So really check yourself there. If you are trying to protect your team from stress, is that really what you're doing? They may have more capacity. Have you had a conversation with them? Stress is not just about the volume of work, it's about the level of support that we're offering. And then there's another little sneaky one that comes in when we convince ourselves that it's quicker if we do it ourselves, and that is dopamine. I talk about dopamine like every episode, I'm sure of it. But this is a sneaky one because it really feels good to tick something off your list. And so if you're in senior leadership, often we are working on bigger, longer term, more strategic projects, and we don't get the smaller incremental bursts of satisfaction from doing shorter, smaller tasks. So are you doing those small tasks because it feels good to get something done? And then the final thing that I see driving this behavior is, and it's aligned with this dopamine idea, when we become more senior, as we step up through the levels of seniority, every time we get a promotion, we're out of our depth. The majority of our role is in our discomfort zone because we're stretching. And so what I see happening is leaders carry their tasks with them upward as they move through leadership ranks through the organization. And what that does is it means that every time you become more senior, your remit significantly expands, and all of a sudden you're working crazy hours. But just because you're more senior doesn't mean you have to double the amount of hours you work. You need to really consider, is all of the work that I'm doing within my current role and my current remit? Or have I carried those tasks along with me through my journey and I need to hand them back to the person who has replaced me? So doing it all can feel productive because you're being busy, you're being helpful, you're dependable, but it's a trap. And over time, it makes you the bottleneck. I have worked in organizations where the heads of marketing or global CEOs even are reviewing marketing copy, reviewing social media posts. That is an example of people getting into senior leadership, holding on to the tasks that they enjoy usually, and becoming massive bottlenecks and really painful to work with. It is robbing your team of the opportunity to stretch, to grow and to step up. So let's talk about the reframe. Think of delegation not about offloading or micromanaging or anything like that, but it's actually about multiplying impact. It's about building capability around you so that you can actually lead, which is your job. Done well, delegation will increase trust in your team. It will build ownership and accountability in your team members, and it will develop the future leaders in your organization. And then the main thing is it will free you up to do your job, to focus on vision, on strategy, on big picture stuff. So let's talk about how you can do it well. First, we need to determine who to delegate to. So actually, first is what are you going to delegate? And that's what I've just said. So going through what is within my remit, what is not within my remit, what have I been carrying and dragging along with me because I find it interesting or I'm really good at it, but actually someone else could be doing it. So that's the first step. We're identifying the tasks that we need to be handing off. Then I want you to look at, do a bit of an assessment on skill versus will. And this will help you to determine who you're delegating to. So ask yourself the question, okay, I need to delegate X task. Does this person have the skill and do they have the will? And I've got a little matrix which I'll link in the caption, but we can plot on a bit of a graph, a bit of a quadrant, skill and will. If someone has high skill and high will, let them lead. Give them the autonomy, empower them, let them go with it. That is the person that should be owning this task. If they have high skill, so they're able to do it, but low will, not super keen on it, then start to get curious and see if you're able to inspire them. So is it burnout? Is it misalignment? What's driving their resistance? Lean into having this conversation and see what challenges you're able to help them overcome so that you can get them to do it. Or get someone else to do it and then see what happens with their will. Then we have someone maybe who has low skill, hasn't done this task before, but high will, super keen. This is a perfect training opportunity. So give them the support they need and let them grow. And I'm going to talk about a strategy to do this in a moment. And then finally, if we have someone that has low skill and low will, we're likely to not. They shouldn't really be on the delegating list. But if they're in a role that should be on the delegating list, then this is a development conversation or sometimes a values conversation. So this is your opportunity to really lean in and coach this person. So we're not striving for a one-size-fits-all delegation strategy. We need to make sure that we're leading based on readiness and capability, and then we're offering the level of support that each individual needs. So we've determined what we need to delegate. We've determined who is the best person to delegate to. The next step is how to delegate. So whether it's a task or a full responsibility like a project or a suite of reporting, there's a great model, and I think it actually originated in the medical space, but it's called the watch, do, teach model. It's very simple. The first step is watch. So you as the leader do the task, demonstrate the task, set the expectations. So you're modeling what you need doing. This is a really useful one if you do genuinely believe that it will be quicker for you to do it yourself. Then do it yourself, but have someone come along and shadow you while you're doing it. If you're doing a quick 10-minute task, have them sit with you and talk them through what you're doing, but you still do the task. So you're starting to walk down the path of delegating it to them and still getting it done in a timely manner, and you're still doing it how it needs to be done. Then once they've done the watch me step, the next step is do it with me. So They will take the lead. So the next time this task comes up, let them take the lead, but you're still shadowing them. So you're guiding, you're helping to build their confidence, and maybe asking some coaching style questions to build their critical thinking capabilities to overcome problems as they arise. And then once they've done that, you step back and let them do it. Let them own it. Maybe you check in, maybe you review it before it gets passed on, but they're really in the driver's seat here. And then finally, they teach. So this is where the person you've delegated to then passes on that knowledge to a peer or to someone else. This is how we can really ensure that they have consolidated their knowledge and how to do that task. There's this great quote, which I'm probably going to butcher, by Albert Einstein, which says, "If I cannot explain it clearly, then I don't understand it well enough." So getting the person you've delegated it to then upskill another person in the team will really help to consolidate their understanding of what needs to be done. And it also starts to move them into more of a mentoring and training type role. So that's really a bit of a 4-step process, the watch, do, teach model, where you can upskill your team members, especially when you do work in a fast-paced environment or you're talking about particular tasks that need to be done quickly. Then that's a great way of you slowly trying to extricate yourself from that process. What you're really doing here is building ownership and capability. And that is actually what you should be doing as a leader. So here are the key things to know. You don't need to do it all. And in fact, you shouldn't be doing it all. If you are doing it all, you are no longer being an effective leader. When you delegate well, you create space for you to lead strategically and for you to spend that time on what you should be spending time on. What is actually within your scope? What could you be driving? What strategy, or where could you be more strategic? Could you be zooming out and starting to do some future planning during that time? Could you be training and upskilling? Could you be performance managing? There are so many other things that you could be doing as a leader when you take yourself a little bit further removed from the day-to-day tasks. And you're also creating or developing future-ready team members because you're starting to impart this knowledge. I've said it before, I'll say it 1,000 more times. Simon Sinek has said that one of the great markers of a successful leader is that no one notices when you're not there, because you have empowered and instilled enough knowledge and capability within your team that they're not relying on you anymore. If you're always doing the doing and never delegating, then you are not doing that. When you delegate, you model trust, clarity, and shared ownership. So my challenge to you today, what is one task or one project that you are holding on to that someone else could grow from? And what would handing that to someone else free you up to do? Even if you just let go a little bit, even if you were to break down a project into smaller tasks and get other people involved in components of the project, how would that free up your time? That's all we have time for today. We have spoken about the reasons people don't delegate, and then those 3 steps. Figure out what needs to be delegated, determine the best person to receive and execute on that work, and then look at the level of support that you need to hand that over effectively. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Lead Well with Jackie. If this episode has helped reframe delegation for you or given you some clarity in terms of the steps required, I'd love to hear about it. Please DM me, email me, or share it with another leader who needs permission to stop doing it all. And don't forget, leadership isn't about carrying more. It's about building more capacity in yourself and others. It's a privilege to spend time with you, and I'll see you next time on Lead Well with Jackie.